One of my favorite summertime jobs is making bread and butter pickles. Later I'll be making dill pickles and garlic pickles, but I always keep a gallon jar of bread and butter pickles and keep adding to it all summer long. This morning we went out and picked our cucumbers. There's two varieties there. One is a straight 8 and the other one's a burpless kind. Because I had the seeds. You can hit pause anytime in the video. This is the recipe I'll be using. Found this on the internet a few years ago and typed it up and made a few little changes to it. The directions. Use cucumber, onions in my recipe. And they're all from the garden. If you like, message me with your email address and I'll send you a copy of this in a Word document. Here's the ingredients. Vinegar. It says coarse salt, so coarsest in the grocery store is kosher salt. Works fine. Celery seed, whole mustard seeds, and turmeric. Now I see I got my whole mustard seed at a place called Truman's Store in Siegel, PA, near Cook's Forest. If you ever get a chance, stop in there. You can buy steak, kerosene, mustard seeds, ice cream, fly paper, hoses, anything you want. It's this little general store, like the old kind, way out in the middle of nowhere, a little town called Siegel. It's a trip to walk through and see everything they have. Probably have more stuff than Walmart. The first preparation step is to section your onions for slicing and cut the butt ends off your cucumbers. There's bacteria and funguses and hiding this blossom end, and of course there's probably insect eggs and stuff hanging around on the stem, so you want to throw those away. You can make your cucumber slices as thick or as thin as you like. I've even made bread and butters by cutting them into spears, like the dill pickles. I've never done them whole. I'd probably advise against that. This year I bought a mandolin slicer, and the thickest setting is making the pieces this thick. I'd say that's a little, about 3/8. No, that's less than 1/4 of an inch. I'd like it just a tad thicker, but that's the only blade they gave me. There we have our next layer of cucumber, onion, and salt and ice. Okay, last layer of cucumber slices and onions and ice and kosher salt. Now we're going to add this Corral plate, fits perfectly on top. I start out upside down so it don't fall off. Hopefully we're above the rim a little bit there. And then you add a weight. I happen to have 14 pounds of kitty litter to set on there. Now in about an hour I'll flip the plate over so it presses down in further. This is a 3-hour process to squeeze and draw the water out of the cucumbers. You can use a gallon jug of bleach or whatever you have that's heavy and clean. Of course, I wiped that off before I set it on there. Good. And the whole process takes about, I'll say, 3 hours and 45 minutes to 4 hours. While that's cooling and going through the salt and ice process, I'll ready the rest of the ingredients. My wife's been a diabetic for most of her life, 40 years, so I always cheat on the sugar. I'm only putting 2 cups in instead of 2.5. The recipe is not exact, especially when it comes to the amount of cucumbers and onions you put in. That's how many cucumbers you have and how much onions you want to chop up. The rest of the ingredients, as far as the vinegar and the spices goes, I try and keep pretty accurate, except for the sugar. I always cut back on the sugar. Just don't need it. Remember, I told you the recipe wasn't an exact science. We went off script. I put in 2.5 cups of cider vinegar and also 2.5 cups of regular vinegar because every time I read the recipe, I got it wrong. But we're going to persevere. We have all our ingredients in the pot waiting for the chilled cucumbers to finish. I went downstairs and got my genuine gallon pickle jar. Used to have Kraft mayonnaise in it, I guess restaurant size. Lid got rusty, so I just used saran wrap and a piece of a rubber band to seal it when I put it in the fridge. Can't use rusty lids on food. It's been about an hour and the ice is starting to melt down and the plate reached the lip of the bowl, so I'm adding a smaller diameter plate. Put my original back on and setting the weight on to keep compressing the pickles. It's about 2 hours and 45 minutes later. We're still compressing using offsetting plates. And now I'm starting to warm up the liquid a little bit to dissolve the sugar. I don't want granulated sugar in my pot when I start adding the cucumbers. So we're just going to make sure that gets dissolved in there. Kind of like making Kool-Aid. And make sure the sugar gets dissolved. Sugar's all dissolved. I'm not going to heat the liquid. We'll do that after we put the pickles in. Okay, our 3 hours are up, and you can see how the slices have been compressed and some of the excess water driven out of the cucumbers. I'm going to drain this pot in the sink, this bowl in the sink. You want to drain off the excess salt water. You don't want to add that back into your mixture because the recipe doesn't call for salt, only during this process. Okay, we're adding the cucumbers and onions into the pot with our solution in there. And we're going to put the heat on a little bit below medium. The object of warming up this mixture is this processes the flavors into the pickle. And you want it to steam a little bit but not boil. And then we're going to turn the stove off and put it in the jar. You just want that brine to get hot enough so that you can see the steam coming off your pickles. Hopefully you can see that there against the black of the stove. Stir that around a little bit. Make sure you got, there you go, you can see that steam coming off there. Once it's that hot, you're ready to transfer it into the jar. I do that in the sink. I'm doing a transfer process here. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I'm just scooping in there. Then once I get all the cucumbers fished out of there and placed in the jar, I'll take a soup ladle and fill the jar up close to the top with whatever remaining brine and mustard seeds remain in the pan, in the pot. There's our finished product ready to go into the refrigerator as soon as it cools down a little bit. And the best part is the 5 cucumbers I processed and The onions came from the garden. All total with the vinegar and sugar, there's probably about $3.50 worth of paid for ingredients. Recycled jar. And 2 quarts of bread and butter chips on Amazon is $19 plus $5 shipping. So we're looking at about a $20 bill there that we made ourselves, and you will not taste any better bread and butter chips than we just made. Tomorrow, dill pickles, and we'll be canning those. This is just going to sit in the refrigerator all summer. I'll add to it using the same brine over and over again, a little bit more vinegar, a little bit more spices. That jar will go up and down all summer long as long as we have cucumbers coming in the cucumber patch. Happy kitchen.